You're tuned in to Storytime Audio, where today we unravel the gripping narrative, shattered vows and unexpected strength. A soldier's journey through betrayal and healing with a cheating wife. In this emotional tale, we follow John Walker, a soldier deployed in Iraq, who faces a devastating betrayal upon his return home. As he grapples with heartache and the quest for justice, this story showcases the incredible resilience and transformative power of forgiveness. Join us as we delve into a journey marked by love, loss, and the ultimate path to healing. "Daddy, please, you need to come home," were the first words out of my daughter's mouth when she Skyped me at my duty station in Iraq. Her voice was trembling, and I could see the distress etched across her young face, despite the grainy video quality. My heart sank instantly, knowing something was terribly wrong. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though a sense of dread was already creeping in. "It's Mom, Dad," she sobbed, wiping her eyes hastily. "She's seen another man." My heart skipped a beat, then pounded heavily in my chest. This was the kind of news no husband wanted to hear, especially not while deployed thousands of miles away from home. "How do you know that, Megan?" "Surely you're mistaken," I said, trying to rationalize the unimaginable. Sarah, my beautiful wife of 18 years, had always been devoted to our family. This couldn't be true. "Dad, she's out with him 2 or 3 nights a week. Sometimes she doesn't come home until 1 or 2 in the morning. This morning she didn't come home until almost 6 o'clock. "Dad, I'm scared," Megan cried, her voice breaking. I could feel the bile rising in my throat as I tried to process what she was telling me. "Do you know who the man is, Megan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think his name is Charles something." "Charles Johnson," she replied, sniffling. "Yes, that's him. I've only seen him once when he picked Mom up. Tall, kind of skinny guy with short black and gray hair. If that's who it is, he's the mayor. He drives a big fancy car and sometimes he picks Mom up in a limo." That made sense. Sarah had worked on his election campaign. Maybe she was just going with him to party or something. But if that's the case, why was she coming home so late? "I need you here, Daddy. Come home, please," Megan begged me, her voice filled with desperation. "Honey, I'll see what I can do. But whatever you do, don't say anything to your mom," I instructed, trying to keep my voice calm. "I won't, Dad. But please hurry before something really bad happens. I'll do my best. I love you, Megan." "Love you too, Dad. My name is John Walker. I'm 42 years old and a design specialist for a large electronics firm. I'm also a major in the National Guard, which is why I'm currently on a year-long assignment in Iraq where I serve on the main staff. I've been married to the love of my life, Sarah, for 18 years, and the fruit of our union is our awesome 15-year-old daughter, Megan. Sarah is 40 but looks even younger. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever known. 5 feet 6. With a terrific body that actually improved after she gave birth to our daughter. Her dark brown hair falls down to her shoulders and warm brown eyes always sparkle when she smiles, and she smiles all the time. I could honestly say our marriage has been rock solid, even when I've been deployed. Our time together has been warm and loving, our sex hot and always satisfying. I've never had a doubt about her fidelity, nor she mine. So what happened? I didn't have a clue. I completed all the necessary paperwork for 30 days of emergency family leave and caught a flight that 26 hours later found me renting a car at Kennedy International Airport and heading for home. It was Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock when I stopped the car half a block from my house. The early April sun was casting a warm glow on the surrounding neighborhood. I could see lights on in my living room, kitchen, and in the upstairs master suite. I could actually see my wife walk past the window a couple of times. It looked like she was getting ready to go out. I called my daughter's cell phone, and after 3 rings she picked up and spoke softly. "Daddy, is that you?" "Yes, baby. Don't say anything, but I'm here just a half block from the house." "Oh, Daddy, thank you," and I could hear her start to cry. "Is your mom going out tonight?" "I'm pretty sure. She's been in her room for over an hour. I heard the shower, and now I can hear her humming. Sounds like she's pretty excited about her night." "Yeah, I guess. It makes me sick, Daddy. Why is she doing this to us?" "I don't know, Megan. And your mom may not know either. Let's not judge her until we know what's really going on." "What are you going to do?" "I'm not completely sure. I guess I'll just follow them and get the lay of the land before I decide how to respond." "Be careful, Daddy. Do Do you need to change clothes? Nope. I figure my camo fatigues will stand out enough to create a little shock and awe when the time comes. Good luck, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, Megan. And no matter what, you and I will always be together. At 4 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway and a tall, slender, well-dressed man climbed out of the car. I thought he'd go to the door, but he talked for a few seconds on his cell phone and the lights went out in the master suite. A minute later, the door opened and my wife stepped out onto the porch. She made sure the door locked behind her, then walked quickly toward her date with a big smile on her face. She looked stunningly beautiful and my heart broke into a million pieces when I saw her glance back at the house to make sure Megan wasn't watching before she gave our illustrious wife-stealing mayor a warm kiss on the mouth. He helped her into the car and they drove away. Fortunately, I was steady enough to snap a picture of the kiss with my cell phone. I followed them at a safe distance and since the traffic was fairly light, I didn't have a problem staying with them. They drove across town and pulled into the parking lot of the Grand Palace Hotel. I parked half a dozen spaces away and watched as they exited the car and entered the building. They walked close together with their arms around each other and I snapped another photo. It was obvious their affair had been going on for a long time. They were so comfortable together. They looked for all the world like a loving married couple out for a date night. I waited until they were inside the hotel before I put on my camo hat and sunglasses and followed them. When I got inside, I couldn't see them but I wasn't concerned. I got some of the usual smiles and, "Thank you for your service," comments, which I acknowledged while at the same time checking out the information board that listed the current events taking place inside the hotel. One stood out: the St. James Hospital Charity Ball. It was in the third-floor ballroom and music from the live orchestra was already filtering down to the lobby. Ignoring the bank of elevators that was shuttling well-dressed, well-heeled couples up to the ballroom, I took the stairs, not wanting to be observed too quickly and realizing my legs needed the exercise since I had been mostly sitting on the series of long flights. When I got to the third floor, I followed the music and easily found the ballroom. I walked past the entrance slowly, glancing in, and sure enough, there they were just inside the doorway looking and acting like the happy couple. They were greeting friends and supporters. My wife actually glanced back and looked right at me for a second but I saw no recognition on her face. Why would there be? As far as she knew, I was still thousands of miles away fighting flies, sandstorms, and insurgents. I also noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding rings. When I got past the entrance, I went into the men's room and sat in a stall trying to plan my next moves. I was having a hard time grasping what I'd seen. I was so certain that my marriage with Sarah was as solid as any marriage could be. How stupid I felt. Likely the whole time I was in Iraq honoring my duty to my country. My loving wife was here at home dishonoring me, shattering our wedding vows. And what was wrong with all those people they were meeting and greeting? Didn't they know the woman that was hanging all over the mayor was married to an army officer serving overseas? I felt warm tears begin to run down my cheek but wiped them away. There was no time for self-pity. I had a plan to formulate and carry out. At the moment, I had a much different enemy to fight than the insurgents. I stayed in the bathroom stall for half an hour, giving the festivities ample opportunity to get into full swing before I made my way through the ballroom door. Only the few people at the entrance paid any attention to me as I edged my body close to the wall and slowly walked to an area away from the bar and food tables to a vantage point behind a pillar where I had a clear view of most of the room. I didn't have a ticket to get into the event, but my uniform had more clout than any piece of paper. The young man taking tickets actually saluted me and said, "Welcome, sir," when I came through the door. The thought ran through my mind: it's too bad my wife and her lover don't have that kind of respect for me and the uniform I wear. It took me a few minutes to locate Sarah and her date. They were dancing to a slow song. My wife's arms around his neck, her head against his chest, his hands resting possessively on her bottom. I managed to take several photos but it took all my willpower to keep from rushing onto the floor and decking the guy and kicking his balls up into his kidneys. But that would only give me a little satisfaction and likely put me in jail. What I wanted, what I needed, was absolute proof of their affair, and then I would find an appropriate way to exact revenge for their total disrespect of me, our daughter, and the US Army. They danced another dance, then arm in arm they made their way to their table, sharing an intimate kiss and caress before they sat down. I captured it all in photos. I'd seen enough for the moment, So I made my way out to the hallway and found a seat where I could watch the ballroom doors and the elevators. As an army officer, I had learned patience, and it paid off since another 2 hours went by before the event began to wind down and people made their way out the door and down the elevators. It wasn't long before my wife and the mayor made their exit and stood just outside the door talking. After a minute, they smiled at each other and turned together to the bank of elevators on their left. But instead of pushing the down button, they chose the one that would take them up. It was more than weird. I was only about 15 feet from them, sitting on a bench against the wall, wearing my camo fatigues and sunglasses, my name tag clearly displayed on the front of my uniform, looking totally out of place amid the tuxedos and ball gowns. Though many other couples noticed me and smiled or waved, my wife and her lover were so tuned into each other that they never gave me a glance. As the elevator door opened and they entered holding hands, I watched to see that their car stopped on the 11th floor and waited to see if it went up again. It didn't, and in fact, it came back down to the 3rd floor where more couples were waiting to go down to the lobby. I made my way back down to the registration desk. I know this is an unusual request, but I have an important message for Mayor Johnson that I've been directed to deliver to him personally, I said, showing my government ID. The young lady at the desk looked worried. Sir, I'm really not supposed to divulge that information. Young lady, if it wasn't of the most urgent nature, do you really think I'd be here in my uniform? She nodded a few times and then checked her registry. He's in 1114. Thank you, miss. I went to the elevators and got off on the 11th. The arrow pointing to rooms 1101 to 1134 went to the left. I walked past 1114, looked around to see if anyone else was in the hall, and placed my ear against the door. I could hear soft conversation and that's all. So I went further down the hall until I found the door that led to the stairs. I figured it might lock behind me, so I placed my handkerchief between the door and the latch. Then I checked my watch. It was around 8 o'clock. Megan said her mother usually came home between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and once lately at 6 o'clock. So I had a long wait. But again, my army training in patience paid off. Through the window in the door, I could see room 1114, so I wouldn't miss them when they were done with their sex fest. As I waited, I tried to keep my mind on the task at hand, but the truth is I kept imagining her other lover plunging himself into my wife who had pledged to be mine alone. I could say my heart was broken, but it went far beyond that. I could feel my life spiraling down into a dark abyss where only pain, rejection, and humiliation lived. I knew I had to hold it together for my daughter's sake, but the knowledge that the woman I loved more than anything else on earth and trusted with every fiber of my being was at that very moment giving her body and soul, her love and passion, to another man overwhelmed me with a tidal wave of pain. Sometime around 9:30, I stepped out of the stairwell and pressed my ear against their door. I could hear very faint sounds. It sounded like moaning, and then I distinctly heard my wife hollering, "Yes, oh God, yes. Do me, Charles, do me hard like that. You're so good." And then she screamed. A scream I'd heard many times before when she had a climax with me. With tears running down my cheeks, I returned to the stairwell. I figured they would be wrapping things up before long and leaving their love nest in the next hour. At 10 o'clock, I exited the stairwell for the last time and parked against the wall outside their room. My cell phone was set for video, and 15 minutes later I heard the chain being removed from the door and the click of it opening. I began recording as they came out of their room. He had his arm protectively around her, and she was leaning against him, smiling. Sarah looked freshly scrubbed and well drilled. Charles Johnson looked pleased with himself. They kissed briefly and turned towards the elevators. Sarah saw me leaning against the wall. "How did the screwing go, Sarah? It looks like you two had a nice time," I said. Sarah finally noticed me and suddenly looked like she was going to pass out. She put her hand to her heart and cried out, "Oh, John, no. Oh God, please no. This can't be happening. You weren't supposed to see this," and she fell to her knees. It took her lover a few seconds more to realize who Sarah was talking to. Then he said, "Hey man, this is really not what it looks like." She was just helping me with my new campaign. "Yeah," I said, "I can tell. I guess screwing her and killing her marriage is a new campaign tactic. I wonder how the voters are going to view that when the newspapers and TV stations find out you've been screwing an army officer's wife while he's in Iraq defending his country." "Wait a minute now, there was no sex involved. Tell him, Sarah," he said. "Mr. Mayor, don't try to play me for a fool. I saw the kissing at my house and on the dance floor and heard the moaning and, "Do me, Charles is through the door. You've won my wife, she's all yours." And I'm sure that you're both proud of the fact that it all took place behind my back while I was sucking sand and ducking incoming fire thousands of miles from here. Effing cowards, both of you. Even my daughter knows what you've been doing. Charles stood there stunned, not knowing how to respond, and my wife knelt in a heap on the floor sobbing. "Don't bother to come home tonight, Sarah. Spend the night with your lover. I'm going to comfort our daughter, and Monday I'll file for divorce right after I inform the news media what kind of mayor is running the city. I have 30 days of emergency leave, so stay away until I go back. Then you can decide how to carry on with the rest of your life." "John," I heard my wife say. "Please." "What, Sarah? Please forgive the fact that you've been screwing another man the whole time I've been deployed? Maybe longer? Please don't tell our daughter what you've been doing. She already knows, Sarah. She's the one who told me to come home. I can't imagine why you've done what you've done, but you obviously have your reasons. I hope you two are in love because all you've got is each other now." I turned and walked towards the elevator. "I'm sorry, John," she wailed. "Sorry about what, Sarah? Sorry I found out? Sorry I caught you screwing your new love? Sorry I screwed up your new life as the town society queen? I watched the two of you from the moment you left our house till just now, walked out of room 1114, and not once did I see a hint of you being sorry about anything. Quite the contrary, you looked as happy as any couple could possibly be with each other. Have a good life. Nah, eat and die, both of you." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the lobby button. When I got home, I found Megan waiting for me. I could tell she'd been crying. She ran to me and threw her arms around me. "Oh, Daddy, I've missed you so much. I'm so glad you're home. I missed you too, baby. More than I can tell you. Did you find them, Dad? Mom and the mayor?" "Yes, baby, I found them, and I'm sorry to say you were right. I don't think your mom will be coming home for a while." "I don't care, Daddy. She's ignored me almost ever since you've been gone. Please take me with you when you go. Honey, I've got to go back to Iraq in a month, and as much as I wish you could be with me, you have to stay here." "I can't stay with her, Dad. I hate her." "No, Megan. No matter what your mother has done to me in our marriage, she is still your mother. She doesn't love me, Dad," and she wrapped her arms around me. I held her as she cried. I had no proof that Sarah and her lover had used any of our bedrooms for their tryst, but I didn't want to take a chance, so I slept on the couch even though I wasn't sure they hadn't had sex there either. Sleep came only in spurts. 45 minutes here, half an hour there. I kept thinking about how I would handle the situation when Sarah came to claim her clothes and personal items she'd need until I left in 30 days. I could have been a nice guy and taken a hotel room, leaving the house to her, but I just couldn't find it in my heart to be that nice. She was the one that destroyed our marriage, so she could at least suffer the minor inconvenience of being displaced from her home for a month. Besides, I'm certain her lover would be happy to put her up. They've been acting like a married couple. Now they could live like one for a while. Call it a trial marriage. Megan and I both slept till noon. Well, at least off and on until noon. I got up first and fixed coffee, then managed to make toast and scrambled eggs for us. When Megan finally came out of her room, we made small talk while we ate, and while we were rinsing the dishes and placing them in the dishwasher, the phone rang. Megan and I looked at each other, then she answered it. "Hello? Oh, hello, Mom. Yes, he's here. No, I don't think he wants to talk to you. Why would he?" There was a pause while she listened. "Mom, really? Dad and I both find it hard to believe you're sorry. It's not like you slipped up and kissed the guy once. You've been having an affair with your boyfriend ever since Dad deployed." Another long pause. "Yes, I was the one that told Dad I needed him to come home." Pause. "Mom, you've ignored me for months. The only thing you've thought about, the only thing that's been important to you, is your affair with Charles Johnson." Pause. "Mom, please use your brain. Why would I tell Dad not to hurt me? Mayor Johnson, that evil man, needs to be hurt and hurt badly for what he's done." "Sorry, Mom, not going to happen." Megan turned to face me. She seems scared, Dad, like she doesn't understand what's going on. It's like she thinks her cheating on you is no big deal and she can't figure out why you don't want her to come home. "She doesn't understand? No big deal?" I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "Well, I promise that before I'm done with the two of them, she will understand what she's done and just how many people she's hurt by her behavior." Things were quiet around the house for most of the day. I tried to keep from thinking about what Sarah might be doing with her lover, and Megan tried to talk to me to keep my mind occupied. We did talk about what would be best for her when I went back to Iraq. I thought she'd be happy staying in her home, going to her school, being with her friends. But Megan was afraid her friends would turn against her once they learned the terrible things her mother had done. I told her that real friends would stand beside her, but she wasn't convinced. We settled things with my assurance that I'd call my mom to see if Megan could stay with her until my deployment ended, hopefully in another 5 or 6 months. Late in the afternoon, the phone rang again. It was Sarah. I answered, but as soon as I heard Sarah say, "John, oh John, please give me a chance to explain," I passed the phone to Megan without saying a word. "What, Mom?" Megan's voice was hard and cold, and she held the phone away from her ear so I could hear what her mother was saying. "Stacy, I need to talk to your dad. I told you, Mom. He doesn't want to talk to you. But I need to explain to him." "Explain what, Mom? What can you possibly tell Dad that will explain what you and Charles Johnson have been doing for the past 6 months?" "It's not what you think, Megan." "Yes, Mom, it is exactly what Dad and I think. You've turned your back on both of us in the worst way a woman can turn her back on her family. Shame on you, Mom. Shame on you." Megan was hollering at her mother at this point, and I could hear Sarah crying. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Megan." "Well, you did hurt people, Mom. People who loved you more than anything in the world, and you ripped the heart out of the one man that would die for you. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mom. I hope your sordid affair was worth it because it cost you your family. Whatever that's worth to you. I just hope that one day you'll wake up from this fantasy world you're living in and realize how selfish and stupid you've been. Oh please, Megan, I love you and your dad." "Yeah, right, Mom. And pigs fly. If you love us, you have a really strange way of showing it, and I hate to think what you'd do if you hated us. Now, do you need something, or can I go back to spending time with my dad?" There was the sound of Sarah crying. "I need some things," she said quietly. "I need some clothes, and I need my pills." That last part came out softly. "What pills would that be, Mom?" "Oh God, my pills. My birth control pills." "Oh sure, how stupid of me. Of course you do. We couldn't have you carrying around the mayor's bastard child now, could we, Mom? That would really cramp your style, huh? Hard to neck on the dance floor when you're fat and pregnant." "Well, I'll tell Dad, and I'm sure between the two of us, we can manage to pack your clothes and your birth control pills. And makeup too, Megan." "Oh right, Mom, of course. As the town society queen, you have to keep looking beautiful for His Royal Highness the Mayor and your adoring public. I'll make sure everything is out at the curb by 6 o'clock tonight so you can drive by and pick it up. Have a nice night, Mom." She hung up the phone and immediately Megan began to cry. I put my arms around my daughter. "You were kind of hard on your mom, Megan." "I know," she hiccuped. "I'm not proud of it, but I'm so angry. I couldn't help it. I just had to unload on her." "I know, baby. I know. We'll get through this, Megan. We won't let them win." I gave her another hug and left her to round up the things her mother needed, and I went to my office. I needed to think, and there were a lot of things I had to do in the next few days. My army training kicked in, allowing me to methodically work through everything. I was an expert at putting together battle plans, and this was, in all respects, a battle. The usual minutiae was a no-brainer. Find a good divorce lawyer, cancel our joint credit cards, get one credit card in my name and one in Megan's, change the beneficiary to Megan on my life insurance and retirement plans, and move half the money in the checking and savings accounts into accounts accessible only by Megan and me. The more difficult tasks had to do with how to deal with Mayor Johnson. He had to be punished, and punished in a way that would make him out to be nothing more than a cowardly wife-stealing scumbag. Part of the answer to that task came at 8 o'clock that evening in the form of a phone call, which I answered. Walker Residence. John Walker? I didn't recognize the man's voice. That's right, Major John Walker. I don't know why I threw that in, but I guess I wanted to make an early statement. Major Walker, my name is William Carter. I'm a city councilman here and a friend of Mayor Johnson. I was wondering if I could talk to you about the little misunderstanding involving you, your wife, and the mayor last night. Little misunderstanding? Is that the city's official spin on my wife and Charles Johnson's sex scandal at the Grand Palace Hotel until 2 o'clock this morning? Now, there's no need for that kind of language. We're just talking about a little late-night party between two consenting adults who likely had a little too much to drink and got carried away a bit. I'm sure if we just talk about it, we can straighten everything out. Nothing to talk about. The mayor has been screwing my wife for the past 6 months while I've been in Iraq, and last night I caught them. I understand how troubling that is to you, Major, but I'm hoping that we can find a way to work through this for everyone's sake. Who's everyone, William? My only concern is for my daughter. The rest of you can go to hell. I'm sorry you feel that way, Major. The mayor is a powerful man in this community, and anything that might drag him down or make him look bad could result in, well, shall we say, negative things happening to whoever caused that to happen. Are you threatening me, William? Just telling it like it is, Major. I personally would hate to see anything happen to you or anyone you love. Let me tell you something, William, and I strongly suggest you listen carefully. I've spent the last 6 months dealing with insurgents, meeting them at every turn, and filling their lives with pain and suffering. Don't ever get the idea that I will back down from a fight with a tin-horn wife-stealing scumbag mayor of a town that barely rates a dot on the state map. You and your friend the mayor have never met an adversary like me. I don't give a damn how powerful you think you are. You are messing with the devil if you take me on. That's something my soon-to-be ex-wife forgot to mention to the mayor before she got involved with him. You might have money behind you, William, but I have every man and woman within 100 miles who ever served in the United States Armed Forces. See, we don't like men who take advantage of our soldiers' wives while they are fighting a war overseas. In fact, we loathe and detest them. Here's a little advice, Councilman Carter. Don't mess with me. Remove yourself as far away from Mayor Johnson as you possibly can, or you just might find yourself burned by the fire that's about to pour down on your good friend. Major, please, let's be reasonable. Surely there's an amount of money. Let's say a large amount of money that could change hands and salve over the hurt feelings caused by this unfortunate incident. There aren't any hurt feelings, William. There's just cold, damning rage that a man like Charles Johnson could take advantage of a soldier's wife while he was fighting a war defending his country. And there isn't enough money in Fort Knox to make that go away. The only possible way for this to end to my satisfaction is to see Johnson and my wife feel the pain they've caused my daughter and me. And you have my permission to pass that message on to both of them. Tell them to get all the sex they can and as quickly as they can, because I promise that in a very short time, they may not feel like doing it anymore, at least not with each other. Major, listen, I'm in a tight spot here. When word gets out about this, a lot of heads will roll. There must be some way we can make this go away. Well, if you were sincere about wanting that to happen, it can start by Johnson publicly admitting that he has been having an affair with an army officer's wife while that officer was fighting a war in Iraq. Then he can follow that up by apologizing and admitting his mistake and stepping down as mayor of this community and slinking off into obscurity. He can even claim the booby prize and take my cheating wife along with him. Nothing short of that will change my mind about publicly humiliating him and bringing him to his knees. Damn, you're really serious about this, aren't you? As serious as I have ever been about anything, William. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to fix dinner for my daughter. I hung up. Megan came in from the garage. I put Mom's clothes and stuff out by the curb, and someone I didn't recognize in a black Mercedes stopped and picked it up. Well, for your mom's sake, let's hope that person was sent by Johnson, or there will be some mighty nice clothes for sale at Goodwill. I smiled at Megan. I'm not sure what Goodwill would do with her birth control pills. Megan giggled. I packed her regular clothes but couldn't get myself to include any of her fancy nightgowns. She has some pretty erotic teddies that I've never seen before. Just looking at them makes me sick. It's okay, Megan. Thank you for handling that. She just nodded her head. You know you're going to have to eventually talk to her. I know I will when I'm ready and the time is right. The rest of the weekend went by without incident. Megan helped me do laundry while I spent time working on my plan to bring down Mayor Johnson. Monday morning, I called a guy the first knew at the local paper and arranged to meet him. John Foster met me for coffee at Denny's. He was a nice guy and a reputable reporter, and a few years back had been a sergeant in my National Guard company. What can I do for you, Major? John, I've got some information for you, and what you do with it is up to you. It may sound self-serving to you, and in a way, it is. As I'm sure you know, our guard company has been deployed to Iraq for the past 6 months. Foster nodded. Well, what you may not know is that the whole time we've been away, Charles Johnson has been having a rather public affair with the wife of one of our soldiers. What's the soldier's name, John? I'd rather not say, John, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. I know if I was being cucked by a slimeball like Johnson, I wouldn't want the word to get out. I've seen the two of them together, very cozy. The scuttlebutt on the street is that she is separated from her husband and is going through a divorce. I guarantee you that's not the truth, John. In fact, the husband had no knowledge of the affair until a week ago. No separation except the war and no divorce, at least not yet. I understand, Major, but I can't make unfounded accusations against the mayor of this town and not get sued. Do you have any proof of the affair? I do. I showed him the pictures and video I had taken. Of course, I'd appreciate it if the woman's face was blurred a little. Foster caught on immediately and showed some discomfort. Are you sure you want to go through with this, John? You know the truth will eventually come out. I shook my head sadly. I know, John, but I'll just have to deal with the shame. It's not like I was aware of it while it was going on. While Johnson was screwing my wife, I was thousands of miles away in that miserable sandbox, ducking bullets. The real shame is on him. You're one of us, so you know what a breach of trust it is to take advantage of a soldier in harm's way by having an adulterous affair with his wife. Foster looked sad and nodded. Let me see what I can do. You're sure it's been going on the whole time you've been gone? Yeah, there are other people who've known about it the whole time. People who can't be identified for their protection. I transferred the photos and video to his cell phone, and we spent another 10 minutes talking about the 3 guys from our company who gave their all in the deployment. Then we shook hands and went our separate ways. My next step was to find a good divorce lawyer. I found a couple of names online, and after checking their references, chose one that looked promising. R.J. Collins, Esq. Had an office in the downtown district, and I made an appointment for that afternoon. When I got to the office, I was surprised to discover that R.J. stood for Rebecca Joy, a tomboyish-looking woman about 50 with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. Major Walker, what can I do for you? I liked the way she got right down to business. I need a divorce, and I can tell you up front, it's not going to be a pleasant one. She rolled her eyes at me. There's no such thing as a pleasant divorce, Major, but I'll play along. Why won't your divorce be pleasant? Because while I've been in Iraq for the last 6 months, the mayor of this little town has been beating my wife on a regular basis. Her eyes flew open, and she dropped the pen she was holding. You mean Johnson? I nodded. Yes. Major, you have my undivided attention. For the next half hour, I told her everything while she took notes, stopping me occasionally for clarification or to ask a question. So, your daughter Megan, is she an only child? Yes, and she's 15. How does she feel about what's going on? She hates it. It's tearing her up. She doesn't want to stay with her mother when I go back to Iraq. Well, she's old enough that the court will take her desires into consideration, but since she can't go to war with you, is there another option besides your wife? My mom. I'll call her to see if she'll take Megan until my deployment is up in 6 months. I'm sure she'd love to have her granddaughter stay with her for a while. We talked for the better part of an hour. I gave her the information about our finances, and she told me I needed to talk with my wife to see if there was any possible way we could get past what had happened. I told her if she had seen the look in their eyes when they were together, she would understand why there was no way Sarah and I could ever put this behind us. I wanted the papers ready to serve as soon as possible. Another week went by. This time, Sarah only called the house 5 times to talk to me. Each time, I told her I would let her know where and when and cut the conversation short. On Friday, I heard from my attorney that the divorce papers were ready to be served. She just needed to know where. I told her I'd invite Sarah to my home the following Monday at 2 while Megan was in school, and she could be served at that time. I called Sarah's cell and told her I'd like to meet with her Monday at 2 at the house. She tried to keep me online to begin her obviously rehearsed explanation for her behavior, but I cut her off, telling her that she would have all the time she needed for explanations when we met on Monday. Sarah arrived a few minutes before 2, and we sat down at the kitchen table. When I saw her, my heart did flips. She looked so beautiful. Coffee? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No, just water, please, she replied softly, her eyes avoiding mine. I handed her a glass of water and sat down opposite her. I know you want to have the opportunity to tell me some things, and I will give you that opportunity. Thank you, John, she said, taking a deep breath. I don't want you to get caught off guard, though, so I do need to tell you before you begin that in a little while, someone will show up and serve you with divorce papers. Her face lost all its color. Why, John? I don't want that. I didn't want you to have a 6-month affair with Charles Johnson either, so I guess neither one of us gets our way. John, please, if you'll just hear me out, you'll see why this happened and how we can get around it. I nodded my head. Go ahead, talk. You know I worked on Charles's election campaign. The whole time we were thrown together at functions and on precinct walks, and we got to be friends. After you were deployed, I was lonely, depressed, and Charles bought me lunch and let me use him as a sounding board. He really helped me get through the pain of missing you. Then one night, he asked me to attend a dinner event with him. He said there would be a number of very influential couples on hand and that it might be best if I used my maiden name and left my wedding rings at home just to keep rumors from getting started. I didn't think about it at the time, but now I see where taking my rings off was a mistake. We met so many people that night, and all of them ended up seeing me as a single woman. When did the sex start? I interrupted, trying to keep my anger in check. She looked down at her hands. Not right away. Though we did dance closely that night, when he took me home, he kissed me goodnight. And you let him. I was lonely, John, and I had just spent a romantic night with a handsome man who had stature in the community and who treated me like a princess. Treating you like a princess while your husband was fighting a war? And that gave you the right to disrespect me? No, it didn't, but I was confused. You were so far away, and I missed you so much. I don't know. He just made me feel good. I nodded, and she went on. We went to dinner a couple of times a week after that and to more and more events. I was starting to have such a good time with him, and it made me miss you less. The sex? I pressed. You had been gone a month. Charles and I were going out 2 or 3 times a week. One night, after a romantic dinner, he asked me to go home with him, and I did. I felt horrible afterward. I actually got sick to my stomach and made him take me home. I told him I couldn't see him anymore, that I loved my husband and couldn't believe I had been unfaithful to you while you were fighting a war. But then he called me a few days later and told me how much he missed me. He said he wanted to see me again, but just as friends. He promised he would never put me in a compromising position again. So you saw him again? Yes. That weekend, he took me to a party at one of his friends' homes. It was an intimate party with just 5 or 6 couples, all very important people. Sometime during the evening, the wife of a prominent doctor asked me how I'd managed to capture the heart of the town's most eligible bachelor. She caught me off guard, and I couldn't think of a plausible answer, so I just told her that I was separated from my husband and that we were getting a divorce. In a town this size, that bit of information spread like wildfire, and I felt trapped. Megan was spending the weekend with some friends at a horse camp, and I ended up spending the weekend with Charles at his home. And the rest, as they say, is history. Yes, I am heartbroken that I hurt you and Megan, John. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I'd give anything to undo it. But you can't. No, I can't. Do you love him? I don't know if I love him. I like him a lot. We have so much fun together. Yes, I remember. Sex can be wonderful fun. Is he a better lover than me? No. Oh, I don't know. It's different. Have you been staying with him since I caught you at the hotel? Yes. And still having sex with him. Are you going to marry him? I don't know. We've talked about it. The doorbell rang. I think that's for you, Sarah. She got up and slowly walked to the door. Are you Sarah Walker? She nodded, yes, and was handed a manila envelope. You've been served. For the longest time, Sarah just stood there, looking out the door, holding the envelope in her hands. When she finally closed the door and turned around, I could see she was crying. So it's really over between us, John. Yes, Sarah, it's really over. You made sure of that. But I love you so much. No, you loved the life we had, but you threw it away. Now you get to go find another life. What about Megan? She wants to go stay with my mom until my deployment ends. Sarah finally broke into sobs. Oh God, what have I done? The following day, there was a picture on the front page of the local newspaper with a banner headline that read, "Who is the mystery married woman coming out of a hotel room with Mayor Johnson?" Underneath the photograph of Sarah and the mayor kissing as they exited room 1114 was the caption, "Does her army husband serving in Iraq know what's going on?" The accompanying story gave details about the charity event the two were attending together and that hotel records clearly showed the mayor had booked the room for the night. It also mentioned that there had been unsubstantiated rumors that the two had been meeting regularly for the past 6 months while the woman's husband was deployed in Iraq. The dust hit the fan within minutes of the story reaching people's doorsteps. The mayor's office went into damage control, claiming that the story was a complete fabrication, that Mayor Johnson would never do anything to jeopardize anyone's marriage, let alone the marriage of a soldier serving his country overseas. They went on to state that the photograph was obviously fake and that unnamed sinister individuals were out to get the mayor. They announced he would be holding a press conference later that afternoon to set the record straight. It all sounded good, but unfortunately, over the past 6 months, too many people had seen Johnson and Sarah together. They had never been careful about showing their affection for each other in public. One by one, as friends and supporters began to distance themselves from him, several people anonymously phoned the newspaper to confess they knew for a fact that the couple had been having an affair, having witnessed it on more than one occasion. They expressed outrage upon discovering that the woman's husband was deployed in the army during the affair. That afternoon, Mayor Johnson held his news conference. None of his friends on the city council stood with him. In fact, the only people backing him up were his staff, and even half of them were strangely missing. The newspapers and TV stations were there, recording the whole thing. Johnson expressed horror at being accused of such an unthinkable thing. He assured everyone that he and the woman in question were merely acquaintances and had never done anything to bring shame on themselves or the woman's husband. Halfway through his speech, Sarah pushed her way through the onlookers to the microphone. Despite Johnson's horror, she told everyone, "My name is Sarah Walker. I am the wife of Army Major John Walker, and for the past 6 months, I have been having an affair with Mayor Johnson." At that point, Johnson tried to shove her aside, shouting, "I don't know this woman. She's lying. Yes, you do know me, you son of a, and it's time we both admitted what rotten shits we really are. I am so ashamed of what I've done to my husband that I want to die, but I will not stand here and let you lie about it," she said, turning to face Johnson, who by now had turned red with rage and embarrassment. "Charles, you knew I was married and that my husband was in Iraq, and still you pursued me. I was such an idiot that I listened to you, and now I have embarrassed and lost the only man who has ever loved me." Tears streamed down her face. "I am so ashamed and heartbroken, and I will be sorry for the rest of my life," Sarah said directly into the TV cameras. "I'm sorry, John. I love you," she added before leaving through the crowd while reporters began asking the mayor questions. He turned and stormed back into City Hall. "I have to admit that having the world hear all that damaged my already fragile ego, but I knew the chance I was taking when I went to John Foster, my newspaper contact." The next day, when the president of the city council announced that the mayor had resigned from office and that the council would run the city until a new mayoral election could be held, it almost made up for the embarrassment. "I couldn't wait to get back to Iraq to tell my buddies what happened. I planned on keeping my little indiscretion from Megan, and hopefully, she would get through the rest of her childhood without ever hearing it." Sarah did everything she could to apologize to Megan and me, but it was too little too late. "I filed for divorce, and though it was the hardest thing I ever did, I knew it was the right thing to do. Sarah kept the house, and I made sure that Megan would be able to visit her mom, but she stayed with my mother until my deployment ended. Megan and I both needed time to heal, and my mom was an angel for taking care of Megan during that time. When I returned home, Megan and I found a small apartment and began to rebuild our lives. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wondered if I had done the right thing. But each time I saw my daughter smile and heard her laugh, I knew I had made the right decision. I would always love Sarah, but trust once broken is hard to rebuild. We learned to co-parent for Megan's sake, and though it was awkward at first, we eventually found a way to make it work. Life went on, and I continued my career in the army. I met someone new a few years later, and though I was hesitant to let myself love again, she showed me that it was possible to find happiness after heartbreak. Megan grew up to be a strong, independent young woman, and I couldn't be prouder of her. She learned from our experience, and it made her resilient and compassionate. As for Sarah, she eventually moved on too. She found a job in another town and started fresh. We remained civil for Megan's sake, but the love we once had was gone, replaced by a respectful distance. The pain of betrayal never fully went away, but it became a part of my story. A chapter in my life that taught me about resilience, forgiveness, and the strength to move forward. I learned that while some battles are fought on foreign soil, others are fought within our own hearts, and it is the latter that truly tests our courage and resolve. The weeks following the public revelation and subsequent divorce were some of the most challenging times of my life. I immersed myself in work and taking care of Megan, making sure she had everything she needed to heal from the emotional wounds inflicted by her mother's betrayal. I also began seeing a therapist to help me process my own feelings and to ensure I could be the best father possible for Megan. As time passed, our wounds began to heal. Megan adjusted to living with my mom, and I threw myself into my work in preparation for my return to Iraq. The routine was comforting, a distraction from the emotional chaos. My mother was a great support, providing Megan with the stability and love she needed. One evening, as Megan and I were having dinner, she looked up at me with her big, earnest eyes. "Dad, do you think you'll ever forgive Mom?" The question caught me off guard. I took a deep breath, thinking carefully before I responded. "Forgiveness is a complicated thing, Megan. It doesn't mean I forget what she did or that it didn't hurt me. But holding on to anger and bitterness isn't healthy for anyone. I'm working on it. For you, for me, and even for her." Megan nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand. I'm still really mad at her, but I don't want to feel like this forever." "I know, sweetheart. And it's okay to feel angry. Just remember, it's also okay to eventually let that anger go." Months turned into years, and Megan continued to thrive. She excelled in school, made new friends, and even reconnected with her mother on a limited basis. Sarah had moved to another city and started a new job, trying to rebuild her life as well. We kept our interactions civil for Megan's sake, and over time, the raw edges of our past began to smooth out. I threw myself back into my work with the National Guard. The structure and discipline of military life were therapeutic, providing me with a sense of purpose and direction. I also found solace in running and working out, pushing my body to its limits to silence the turmoil in my mind. One evening, while jogging through the park, I encountered a woman running in the opposite direction. We collided as we tried to avoid a group of kids playing soccer. We both fell, laughing at the clumsy mishap. Her name was Laura, and she was a nurse at the local hospital. Our accidental meeting turned into a coffee date, then another, and soon we found ourselves drawn to each other in a way I hadn't expected. Laura was different. She was kind, understanding, and had a gentle way of pushing me to talk about things I would rather have kept buried. She had her own stories of heartbreak and resilience, and we bonded over our shared experiences. One night, as we sat on the porch of her small house, watching the sunset, she turned to me and asked, "John, do you ever think about getting married again?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears and hopes. I looked at her, seeing the genuine curiosity and care in her eyes. "Honestly, Laura, I never thought I would. But meeting you has changed that. I can see a future with you, and that's something I never thought I'd feel again." She smiled, and we sat in comfortable silence, letting the moment speak for itself. As my relationship with Laura deepened, so did my commitment to rebuilding my life. Megan adored Laura, and seeing them together brought me immense joy. Laura had a calming presence that was just what our fractured little family needed. One day, as we were all having a picnic in the park, Megan looked at me and said, "Dad, I think you should marry Laura. She makes you happy, and she's really nice to me." I laughed, ruffling her hair. "You think so, huh?" She nodded seriously. "Yeah, I do. And I think you deserve to be happy." Her words struck a chord deep within me. Later that evening, as Laura and I sat on her porch, I told her what Megan had said. Laura's eyes filled with tears, and she hugged me tightly. "I love you, John. And I love Megan. I want to be a part of your lives." "I love you too, Laura," I said, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. "Let's make it official." Our wedding was a small, intimate affair with just close friends and family. Megan was my best girl, standing beside me with a smile that lit up the room. My mom was there, beaming with pride and happiness. Even Sarah sent her best wishes from afar, and though it was a bittersweet reminder of the past, it also symbolized a new beginning. Life with Laura was everything I had hoped for and more. She brought light and love into our home, and together, we built a future filled with hope and happiness. Megan flourished, excelling in school and eventually heading off to college. I continued my work with the National Guard, proud to serve my country and grateful for the second chance at happiness I had been given. Laura and I often talked about the future, our dreams, and our plans. We traveled, explored new places, and created beautiful memories. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching another sunset, Laura turned to me and said, "John, Do you ever think about having more children? The question caught me by surprise, but I realized it was something I had thought about too. I do, Laura. I would love that. A year later, our son, Michael, was born. Holding him in my arms for the first time, I felt a wave of love and gratitude wash over me. Life had come full circle, and though the journey had been painful and difficult, it had led me to this beautiful moment. Years passed, and our family grew stronger. Megan graduated from college and started her own career, making us proud every step of the way. Michael grew into a curious, energetic boy who filled our home with laughter and joy. Laura and I celebrated our anniversaries with gratitude for the love and life we had built together. One day, as I was sorting through some old boxes in the attic, I came across a photo album from my earlier years with Sarah. Flipping through the pages, I felt a mix of nostalgia and sadness. The memories of our life together, the good times and the bad, were all there. But instead of feeling anger or regret, I felt a sense of peace. Those experiences had shaped me into the man I was today, and I had learned and grown from them. I decided to reach out to Sarah, not to rekindle old feelings but to offer closure. We met for coffee, and though it was awkward at first, we eventually found common ground in our shared concern for Megan. We talked about the past, the mistakes we had made, and the lessons we had learned. "I'm sorry, John," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I've regretted it every day." "I've forgiven you, Sarah," I replied, meaning it. "We both made mistakes, but we've also both moved on. I'm happy now, and I hope you are too." She nodded, smiling through her tears. "I am. Thank you, John." We parted on good terms, each of us finding our own path to healing and happiness. As the years continued to pass, I found fulfillment in my work, my family, and my personal growth. Laura and I raised Michael together, teaching him the values of love, respect, and resilience. Megan visited often, sharing stories of her adventures and successes. Our family was a testament to the power of love and forgiveness, a living proof that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a brighter future. On our 10th wedding anniversary, Laura and I renewed our vows, surrounded by friends and family. It was a beautiful celebration of our love and commitment, and as I looked into Laura's eyes, I knew that I had found my true partner in life. We traveled the world together, exploring new cultures and creating lasting memories. Each trip brought us closer, and each challenge we faced only strengthened our bond. We laughed, we cried, and we lived life to the fullest, never taking a single moment for granted. As I stood on the porch of our home, watching yet another beautiful sunset with Laura by my side, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain and betrayal of the past had been transformed into a source of strength and wisdom. I had learned that life is not about the hardships we face, but about how we choose to overcome them. In the end, I realized that forgiveness was not just about letting go of anger, but about embracing the possibility of new beginnings. It was about allowing love to heal the wounds and finding joy in the present moment. My life with Laura and our children was a testament to that truth, a living example of the resilience of the human spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I turned to Laura and said, "I love you. Thank you for being my light and my love." She smiled, squeezing my hand. "I love you too, John. Here's to many more sunsets together." And as we stood there, watching the sky turn to twilight, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, with love, strength, and an unbreakable bond. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led me to this beautiful moment, and for that, I was eternally grateful. Years later, as I sat in a rocking chair on the porch, watching my grandchildren play in the yard, I reflected on the twists and turns of my life. The path had not been easy, but it had been worth every step. I had learned to forgive, to love, and to embrace the beauty of each new day. My heart was full, my spirit strong, and my life a testament to the power of resilience and hope. And as the sun set on another perfect day, I knew that I had found my place in the world, surrounded by love and filled with gratitude. Life, after all, is not about the destination but about the journey. And mine had been an incredible one. You've been listening to Storytime Audio, as we journeyed through shattered vows and unexpected strength. A soldier's journey through betrayal and healing with a cheating wife. John Walker's story is a testament to the power of resilience and the human spirit. From the depths of heartbreak to the heights of redemption, his path reminds us that even in the face of profound betrayal, healing and happiness are possible. Thank you for joining us in exploring this emotional and inspiring tale. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart and stir the soul.